All right, we are live for the Wednesday edition of The Hangout. Excited to be back with the fellows. We got Mr. Andre in the middle, and to my right, we have Mr. Tom, the coming conflict, and the broke capitalist joining us today, as always on Wednesdays. Gentlemen, how you guys doing, man?
Doing great, doing great.
Fantastic.
That's good, man. So, as always, we have a variety of subjects to share our 2 cents on and just kind of give a different perspective on what we're being sold as news by the mainstream pundits and all this chaos, and ultimately the crackdown on truth. That's what it boils down to. And so, of course, Tucker Carlson. We have Brazil basically finding and banning Telegram within the country. And also, there's some information I just sent you guys a moment ago talking about more privacy type of features that they don't want us to have. So we're going to touch on that and a couple other things. But let's just jump on what I think is probably going to eventually make its way into mainstream news once more information is provided. But we have President Xi and Zelensky, I guess, finally had their talk. And so this article here, as you see here, Xi and Zelensky talk at last. And so the words were chosen very carefully. And so I guess the words Russia and war were not mentioned in their dialogue. And so amongst other things, it seems very interesting that this is happening at this current moment amongst all the other global peace deals and things of that nature. But, you know, what are you guys thinking of this? And is this something that will spill over into more of the move away from the Western dominance, aka the dollar, or what?
I haven't read the New York Times article. I've read other articles, but I personally think this goes hand in glove with former Vice President Joe Biden announcing he's going to run again for the presidency, because you got to look at the Biden crime family. They are completely bought and sold. They're completely bought by the CCP, right?
Yeah.
So what a better way to humiliate America on the world stage at Biden's expense and show Biden who's in charge than have Winnie the Pooh Xi Jinping come in, talk to President T-shirt over there in Ukraine, and come to some like harebrained scheme about peace, which means absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this is all at America's expense. And in like the grand chessboard like way of thinking about things, Ukraine is just like a mercenary. They have no allegiances, no alliances. They're up, they're for sale to the highest bidder. And to this point, it's been the United States. They're losing. Their men and women are dying. Okay. At least that's what we're being told. I don't know if you saw that article I sent you earlier about how like Kiev has more bars opening than ever and people are getting golden facials and it's like everybody's living the high life. So we'll just put that to the side. It's weird. But so now America has risked her treasure, risked her reputation on this failed proxy war, because we talked about this before. Like, at no point are Russia and NATO / America going to come together and sing Kumbaya and say, well, we've seen the error of our ways, we're going to move on. No, this is existential to Russia and America. We have declared Russia a terrorist state, more or less. De facto, we have declared them that. And we've called for Putin's assassination time and time again. Freaking Lindsey Graham and his gay lover Sean Hannity get on and talked about this every night for the first few weeks of this war, right?
Yeah.
So Russia can't just step back and say like, oh, you know what? We see where we screwed up. You see where you screwed up. Let's shake hands. No, this is existential for both parties, because if NATO loses, and this would be NATO losing, then that is a defeat to NATO, and then that immediately takes America off its perch as the world superpower. And I think this whole Xi and Zelensky meeting talk thing, I understand they're framing it because the Chinese ambassador to France basically said none of the post-Soviet states had any real rights and they weren't legitimate or whatever. That's what they're framing it as. But what I think is actually happening is Xi is seizing on the opportunity where Biden is now injecting himself back into the fray for the race for the presidency, and they own him. And they're just flexing their muscle because I truly believe we have this fifth column in this country that is sold out to the CCP. They don't care about this nation. They don't care about our Constitution. They don't care about our founding documents. They will sell us out to the CCP if it means more digits in their bank accounts. And that's exactly what's happening right now. This is Xi swooping in to humiliate America, my opinion.
Fair enough. What do you think, Mr. Andre?
Well, I didn't read that article either. It was behind the paywall, but I did notice that you said the word Russia and war wasn't mentioned during the conversation. I'm like, well, what the hell are they talking about? Like, I mean, like you go out of your way to say, well, we ain't talking about Russia or war. But I mean, if I was talking to somebody from Ukraine at the grocery store, I'm gonna talk about Russia and war. So why wouldn't the leader of Ukraine and China, who's buddy with Russia, not talk about Russia and war? So I don't get out a lot of credence, but I do agree with Tom that it's kind of a slap in the face to Biden, who I don't know. Is the guy immortal? Is he a robot? How's he gonna run running in 2024? I would think somebody in his family would be like, dude, all right, we got away with one. You own life support. I mean, how are you going to get to 2024, let alone run a country? So there's no way you will ever convince me that Biden is in control. He may not even be in control of his bowel movements, man. Like this guy, there's no like, I believe in Biden. There's nothing about Biden that ooze strength, competency, leadership, nothing. So yeah, if I was Zelensky, and since he is like up for the highest bidder, hey, Russia's close, China's closer. I mean, China's close, Russia's closer. Maybe I'll just, turn my back on NATO and the U.S. Why not? I mean, they losing. According to the mainstream, they're winning. According to everybody else on YouTube, they're losing. So, who do you trust, right?
Right. Good point. And so I go ahead. Just real quick. So I had a chance to thumb through both that primary article, get some of the key gist of what was going on there. And as I mentioned beforehand, before we went live, I don't think Xi is doing this out of the kindness of his heart because he actually cares about world peace and want to really bring, change to the world from the standpoint of helping other nations. It's more so, and even Zelensky in his little tweet here that he put out earlier at the very end, it says, we'll give a powerful impetus to the development of our bilateral relations. And so that whole bilateral relations plays into the best interest of both those countries when it comes to trade. And so as of right now, China is, or Ukraine, or China was Ukraine's biggest trade partner. Ukraine, yep. And so up into the whole war situation. So they depend upon them for iron ore as well as I think barley, if I'm not mistaken. And all that has come to a halt for the most part during this war. And of course, China has more than 1 billion plus people that they got to feed and take care of. So it's good to say that Xi's operating in the best interest of his own people rather than just, doing it for the sake of, the Russians and things of that nature. And as I mentioned, also Ukraine being slap in the middle of the One Belt One Road initiative, they got to come together and so that whole plan can continue to run smoothly somehow, some way. So it's a lot bigger than, what they are leading us to believe. Anyway, go ahead, Tom. What you saying?
No, absolutely. You bring up a good point. But I'll do this caveat. Like, Xi doesn't care about his people. Like the CCP heirs of the Lao Jing, the old 100 names, the Chinese MAGA, I guess you could say, they're just the Chinese man and woman. That's just nonsensical. They're a murderous dictatorship. Like the CCP isn't like they're not even like the EU. They do not care. They have no concern about the people except for to extract whatever labor they can produce to. And okay, the term bilateral relations you just brought up, that is always used by these countries, especially the BRICS countries. And it's talking about like what labor and services can we produce in exchange for what you produce without any consideration as to how that is going to enslave the people that they're using to produce those goods and services. So I just want to make that caveat real quick.
Right.
But absolutely, you're right, because Zelensky, I believe last week or something, no, it might have been this week, he made some comment of like, the best way for the West to go about sanctioning and embargoing Russia is to force all of their LNG and natural gas trade to go through Ukraine, and nothing else will be accepted by the EU. And now that's being taken up by Ursula von der Leyen as like a serious consideration. Like, we're not going to accept any LNG or any natural gas unless it goes through Ukraine. Now they're talking to China, and like you said, it is the connecting point for the One Belt, One Road. So this is neocolonialism. Like, it's what it is. It's exactly what it is. China's coming in and they're buying up resources, they're buying up favors, they're buying up politicians, and Ukraine right now is a rogue actor. It's like, are they going to go with the West or are they going to go with China? And maybe we're not privy to how deep that coin flip could go, and maybe that's why this is happening right now. Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we talked about this, a couple weeks ago when Xi met with Putin, and they mentioned about changes coming that hasn't been seen in 100 years, yada yada yada. And so several weeks later, the whole 12-point plan, which is right here, and as I mentioned beforehand, it was first put out there in the public back in February, but with these 12 main points here, they're very generic in nature. And so it's not really much of a plan other than just something you would submit to any country that's in a military war with another country. Like, let's all come together, kumbaya. But after thumbing through some of these little points here, it's all slanted in China's interests. Like, they're wanting to get involved and help because of, as you mentioned, how it impacts their economy as well as their plans for the future. And that's the only reason why I'd imagine they're so pressed with making peace in the Middle East, especially as well as with Ukraine. And I assume it has something to do with the BRICS and all the stuff that's probably coming in the future. They probably want a nice, smooth, and calm environment, perhaps when they roll out some type of alternative for the world to participate in, because they want everybody to be involved, excluding the G7 nations, perhaps. Or, not sure if you guys had a chance to see that just as of this past yesterday, I think it was, the information out of the South Africa saying that the BRICS have about 19 countries that are expressing interest, of which 13 we know about, and 6 are just, floating the idea out there. And I was wondering, like, what 6 countries that are anonymous as of now that might be floating their name out there for wanting to join the BRICS too. So it could be some G7 nations is what I'm getting at. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I would. Andre? Man, that day we find out Mexico is in the BRICS nation. It's one of the BRICS nations. How are you talking about?
Can you guys hear me? We're really chugging right now.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. So on my side, it says unstable connection. On your side, but I can hear you. You were froze for a moment. You're back now. You're there, but it looks like you're choppy.
Andre.
Uh-oh, you can't hear us.
Hear you. Uh-oh. Looking like one of those claymation cartoons right now. Christmas. You watch that on Christmas.
So, Ty, if you're there, we can hear you. Just can't see you. Or we can see you, but you're froze.
Yeah, you're frozen.
So we'll get them on there.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. You're back.
Did I disappear or did you guys disappear?
So me and Andre were still here. You were frozen. All right, so we're here. So back. So watch this. So you hear as of now. So let's conclude this Xi Zelensky talk. What do you think is gonna come from this? Will all of a sudden Xi flip script and go towards the east, and all of a sudden want to talk to Putin and sit down and come up with some type of deal, or is the West globalists right now on the phone trying to butter him up and say, don't fall for that bait track, don't fall for that trap. We still got plans for your country. You owe us. We've been sending you billions per month. You owe us, or something might happen to you. What do you guys think will come out of this?
I would not be surprised at all if he flipped the script and started taking money from China and Russia. Because, hey, Russia might be like, hey, man, the ruble is backed in gold. You just with the dollar's backed by nothing, come to where it's, get away from that fiat currency and come on over here. Why not? I mean, like I said last week or last time we were on here, like, why would you, if you had a savings account and you earn your money in pesos and you got to, trade in your pesos for dollars to put it into a IRA type of account, why would you do that if you can do it in gold, something stable, something, you know what I mean? So if that option's on the table, I'm like, why not? And like you said, the Belt Road is right there. They're going through Montenegro and all those other countries, what I believe is further south, but that road is going through Eastern Europe. So it makes sense to do it, because what doesn't make sense is our involvement in Ukraine. What would make sense is China's involvement in Ukraine. I mean, it makes sense. But our involvement doesn't make sense.
Right.
Unless you're looking to dump money, which makes a ton of sense. Like, if you're just trying to dump money somewhere into a war that can't and won't be won, Ukraine makes all the sense in the world for the United States. Not for me and you, but for those who trying to just, launder money somewhere, Ukraine makes all the sense in the world. But yeah, the world's crazy. So
yeah, we'll see. What are you saying, Tom?
I will definitely admit that, it's like I hate communism. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I'll definitely admit that I'm biased. Like, I absolutely hate communism. I absolutely hate the CCP. I absolutely hate the oppression that these other countries, these people live under. I'll admit that I'm biased in that. And I'll also admit that I'm hypocritical in the fact that, I hate the American, military industrial complex and all the evil that it does. But for some reason, I have this thought in my mind, I would much rather have America as a hegemon doing the terrible things that it does than have China or Russia in that place. So I guess I just want to put that out there. I'm biased in that reason. But if I'm Ukraine and Andre's saying oh, I could go to Russia and the ruble is pegged to gold or whatever, or China, where they encourage their citizens to buy gold, there's also capital controls. The US dollar is the most liquid currency in the planet. It's not like you can just take rubles, build up $10 bajillion worth of rubles in a Russian bank account, and then export them and on a Forex exchange into America. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in China either, because if it did, all of the Russian people and the Chinese people would be sending their money off and bankrupting the country, because these are not nice places to live. They're authoritarian. Maybe they're not like North Korea level, but they're still not America. There is no rule of law. There is none of this. So I think that is, again, Ukraine is corrupt, but these people aren't stupid. They're probably looking at how can I buy my house in Malibu or in Venice more easily, with rubles, with yuan, or with USD?
Right.
And I think that at the very base layer of this conversation with Xi and Zelensky, it's Xi trying to give a black eye to Biden, but Zelensky also trying to give a black eye to Biden, saying hey, look, I can go over here to China. You better give me some more money. I need another beach house. That type of thing. Exactly. And I'm just going to say this right here and right now. I do not believe this war is happening the way we think it is. And I think that it's all a bunch of crap. Just saying that right now. I want to put that on the air.
Right. I would go along with that as well. Until the fact that so many people are going over there in the midst of all this chaos, world leaders meeting there, actors meeting there. Come on now, how bad can it be? I'm sure close to the border it may not be friendly, but into the country, I imagine life is probably going on as normal, but it is what it is, man. So we'll wait and see. But so let's jump into, I guess, what's happening with Tucker Carlson. And so he was let go, of course, fired. Oh, yep. You still there?
Yep.
I can see you. Yeah. He was fired and apparently informed 10 minutes before, the public was made aware of it. And so, of course, he's taking a lot of heat for being more of a truth teller, in my opinion. But, why is this so timely in your guys' opinion?
Well, I think this is, as they say, who said it? Kevin Hart said it's about to go down. Mm-hmm. So before he got fired, you got all these banks dropping. I think today,
First Republic
is First Republic still in business.
Man, they may not be by next week.
Right. You got that. You got Trump's indictment. You got this. People are starting to kind of figure out about this Ukraine thing. Everybody outside of mainstream media has questioned and pretty much dismissed the beer virus that we went through. Well, at least the solutions to the beer virus. So Tucker Carlson was not one to toe the line, or in other words, he wasn't just going to spew the narrative. He doesn't have a history of just reading from a prompter like everybody else on, here are your talking points, here are your parameters, stay in your lane, be a pretty face or a handsome face, and just, spew these points for our audience. Tucker ain't no telling what you going to. I know, like, when he got those tapes of the January 6th that protest or insurrection, whatever side of the aisle you're on. I know people up top were like, what is going on? You're supposed to have control over this narrative, and you got this Maverick in there disrupting stuff. We got too much important things coming down the pipeline, such as the dollar going off the reserve standard, losing that status, all this stuff they're planning to do to Trump, which is just highly unethical because you're using the DOJ to go after your political opponent. And you can rest assured Tucker Carlson would be that one guy on cable news that will call a spade. And that's just not, you can't kill a guy, right? Because then, it's obvious. Like you find the spotlight on him, make him a martyr. So you just try and disassociate yourself from him. Now, there's a calculated risk there. The risk is he's going to become bigger than Fox because he was the face of Fox. As soon as he left, they lost $1 billion. So, but you want to keep the people who religiously watch Fox News, they're probably not going to go nowhere. A lot of them not going to go anywhere. Tucker Carlson's people are going to follow him. But if you're watching Hannity and Laura Ingraham, you're not going nowhere. You're in that bubble of the Republicans are right, Democrats are wrong. America's the greatest place in the world without sin. Those type of people, they'll stay with Fox. But free-thinking people who question the narrative, they will likely follow Carlson Tucker. And Fox will continue to bleed money, in my opinion.
Right. Now, with this whole Tucker Carlson firing, is he one of? I admit I don't watch the news, mainstream news, as much, just because I'm trying to stay plugged into a variety of sources other than just what we're told from them. But is he one of the last quote unquote truth tellers, conservative, gentlemen that outspoken that tells it like it is, or are there anybody else out there that's like somebody you'll see if you were running on the treadmill in the gym type mainstream guy? You know what I'm saying? Is there anybody else out there? Or he's the last one.
In my opinion, he's the last one. Like you have right-wing pundits, but they're just going to toe the party line. Like even like the Five, because I'll watch them every now and then. It's like I don't want to call them disingenuous because I know they believe in what they believe in. Gutfield he's really good, and he'll say he hasn't said anything to me that will pique anyone's interest. Like what do you say? You know what I mean? But
nothing to get him fired.
Tucker has, and I believe he will continue to do so. And if you look, I always say follow the money. Who owns Fox? I think, was it BlackRock has a pretty big share in them now, increased their share. And eventually all this stuff is people are going to start looking at BlackRock as if you want to call them evildoer, George Bush, the evildoer they are. I mean, they control so much of our life, including the narrative, right? Yeah. And so eventually you're going to have a Carlson Tucker, along with people on the internet, the alternative media, starting to point fingers at BlackRock, right?
So
and
here's a quick list.
Yeah, they just
here's a quick list of like BlackRock's ownership in a lot of these companies here. I'm sure they might have small stakes in the companies, but they spread their tentacles far and wide to make sure that they're able to have a say so in a lot of companies that are necessities for our everyday lives for the most part. So not surprising one bit. What you said, Tom?
Well, this whole Tucker Carlson firing thing is not coincidental. This is definitely a strategic move. Like Andre was saying, like the people who watch Fox News will probably continue to watch Fox News. However, there's a caveat in that these people, the boomer generation, the people who don't get on Rumble, get on YouTube, read independent news websites, they put the news on in the background, and that's it. And they listen to it passively. Tucker Carlson was the only voice that could break through and bring, because his team would look like January 6th stuff, COVID stuff, RFK, all of these niche things that all of us know about, but the normies don't know about. He was able to break through that and make the regime, make the establishment react to him. Tucker was able to make the machine react to him, and that's why they were gunning for him. Now that he's gone, I do agree that it will be better for Tucker, like Andre said, but from what I'm reading is they paid him out for the next 2 years. So for all intents and purposes, he's still employed by Fox, I guess you could say. He can't go out and do anything. It takes him off the bench for the presidential election this coming year. Wow. And that's all that matters to these people. And then let me give you a hot take, right? They fired Don Lemon too the same day, and they fired Nate Silver the next day. These are leftists. Why do you care? Because they want to cut out the extremes on either side, what they call the extremes. Anything that's not in line with the approved regime narrative. That is all that will be tolerated. You will listen to this. You will listen to the same thing said in a different way by every pundit on every network. And if we have any suspicion that they're going to go off the party line, off the plantation, you're done. You just got Tucker Carlson, you got Don Lemon, you're out. And I think that's what's happening right now. They are just like the banks. The banks are consolidating. They're consolidating media. They are running us right into the slaughterhouse. And they're taking away the people that stood in front of the machine, that were able, because like this radical Marxism, the way that we've been protected from it, and maybe a lot of us don't realize this, is through sunlight and exposure. And Tucker Carlson being on Fox News and being able to drive that narrative, when the Biden regime would do these crazy things, he would bring them up and talk about them on a show. And then all of a sudden they had to react and they would backpedal. Okay. Now, without that voice, without that bravery, okay, we could bring it up. Joe Rogan could bring it up. Steven Crowder could bring it up. They ignore the social media, the YouTubes. The mainstream doesn't even acknowledge we exist. So now without Tucker there is no dissenting voice, and they're going to be able to do whatever the hell they want to us.
Watch this. And speaking of which, in the chat, one of the let me see. Somebody just mentioned they fired also or parted ways with conservative host Dan Bongino several times with Fox News as well. So he was another voice that was pretty much more alternative, is where I came across him at. But his platform outside of Fox is pretty large to where he's still going to be able to do what he's currently doing. But looks like Fox, cut ties with him last week. So definitely coordinated. We can all see with all these strategically done events, these is all coordinated. And now it's a matter of now what? Because most people, especially Trump's fan base, the 74, how many ever million plus that have, he's probably gained of people who realize that we've been lied to for the last 2-3 plus years. And so now CNN and Fox shot themselves in the foot because nobody will really listen to them in the first place. So you're going to ultimately drive people to more alternative media sources. And so the question is, what's next for alternative media sources? And then that plays into the Restrict Act that came about using TikTok as a focal point, but it trickles down to all the other platforms. And then let me just bring this on the screen real quick. Here is something that, I'll just ramble through it real quick, but it talks about new proposals would let the government seize domain names. And so you guys familiar with ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigning Names and Numbers. And so they are talking about trying to put some stuff forward where they make it hard for people to re-up their, what is it there? Every 2 or 3 years, you got to re-register your domain name and stuff like that. And so they're making it hard for people to do that, or they're basically not allowing people to do it, giving the government control to take over your .com and .nets. And I'm also, do you guys remember how ICANN, which was based in the US, which is basically it's the gateway to the entire internet protocol for the most part. How I think it was under Obama on his way out. I think he signed off on sending that entire entity into Europe to Germany or something like that, making it a part of the UN or something like that, to where that was a part of the plan a long time ago as well. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it was the EU, I think. It was the EU, I believe the EU as a body regulates ICANN now.
Yeah. But more censorship via the internet, and then it's going to trickle down into those privately owned companies, probably such as Rumble, as BitChute, all the alternative places where majority of the truth tellers have flocked to over the last couple of years. And so my opinion, that's next. So between now and the presidential election, if we get to that point, expect more events to occur that will shine a negative light on on alternative media, because they can't have that either, in my opinion. So we'll see.
Yeah, what really goes under the radar is, I'm gonna throw it out there, Amazon books and stuff. Like, if a lot of people, this is an assumption of mine. Like, everyone older than me grew up reading a lot more than those who are younger than me. Meaning, seeing your dad reading the paper, or your mom and granddad read the paper every day. Reading books was just common growing up. Now, I don't see that. If it's still happening, it's happening. But who buys the majority of books? I would think it's, in the political realm anyway. It's going to be older people. And those older people may be the people who watch on the left CNN, people who watch Fox on the right. But even right now, Amazon is the main distributor of all books. And even there, right-wing, what would be considered non-woke material, I don't even want to call it right-wing material, just non-woke material,
common sense.
Yeah, common sense stuff is suppressed, and woke stuff is elevated. This cannot be coincidental that philosophy that's you see in Amazon is the same philosophy that was used by Twitter before it was bought by Elon, currently but Facebook, Nextdoor, if you guys use that application. Like, all this stuff leans left in narrative form. And so what's the end game here? Like, well, I believe the people who set up the Federal Reserve, when they set it up, knew one thing if they didn't know anything else. Fiat currency has to come to an end. It's just a matter of when. So when they knew that back in 1913 when this thing started. And let's just say 30 years ago, they were like, oh, it's coming to the end in my lifetime, right? How do we get out of this without getting hung in the streets? So they came up with, hey, although we already control the narrative now, we really got to lock this down. So when this thing falls off the rails, no one's going to look at the Fed. Right. I think that's the sole purpose of all this stuff, is for our currency to go to zero and for that Fed to survive it with a digital currency. And the only way I think they can get away with that is if you have everybody looking over there when the real problem is over there and you created it. So, yeah, Tucker Carlson would have, Tucker, he already started talking about the dollar
CBDC
losing its status as a global reserve currency. He already started talking about that. He brought up the CIA killing Kennedy, right? That was on his show, right? And you notice no one complains about Hannity or Laura Ingraham. Nobody's complaining about them because they're just towing the line. You're on the right, stay there. Everybody else but Don Lemon, stay on the left, stay there. Don Lemon, he's a liability anyway. But Whoopi Goldberg and the crew, do what you do. Just stay in your lane, and we're gonna tell you what to say, basically, or at least we're not gonna. There'll be a producer in your ear telling you to shut up if you veer too far right or too far left. And Tucker Carlson was operating without an earpiece, basically.
Or they all know their boundaries of which they cannot overstep. And so they know that they can't go too far to the edge with things that's not pre-approved. So they'll stay with things that is more mainstream, things that steer towards that woke, like we're going to just bash, any form of truth. We're removing common sense from everything now, no critical thinking, and we'll just let the current trends be the primary focal points. And of course, it has to do with all the acronyms, LGBTQ and all that other stuff. Like that stuff it's cool because it's approved. But yet, the closer you go to the boundaries, we got a problem with that. And they all know they get paid to do what they're told to do. I mean, that's ultimately how it goes. So you're not gonna mess with it. You're not gonna bite the hand that feeds you deliberately. You know what I'm saying? So watch this.
Wasn't Glenn Beck was on Fox as well, right?
Yes.
I used to watch that. That's who kind of woke me up to a lot of stuff. Watching his diagrams, he woke me into a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The founding Black fathers. If you guys can ever go find that on YouTube, that was my what? That was my what moment. And it was Glenn Beck, and then a year later he's off, gone.
Right, he was dropping some truth bomb.
This is the whole thing, and Andre and Mike too. You guys are absolutely right. This is all about the prescribed narrative. What is acceptable to contemplate? What is acceptable to discuss in the halls of Congress? What is acceptable to discuss around your dinner table? What are we going to prescribe the people as a conflict to have amongst themselves so they think that they're somehow moving the ball forward in this country when in actuality we're just in this pig pen, right? And now that you take Tucker off, they completely block out the alternative media, just completely silence them. Now what do you get? You get the prescribed narrative, and then you get the regime being able to say, hey, all the news, even Fox News says these people are radical. These are a bunch of radicals. They believe in sound money. They don't want to be enslaved. They think CBDCs are going to enslave us. These people are radicals. And then you get the full weight of the state put down upon us. And I said this in my video today, and Trump said this. They're not after me. I'm just in the way. They're after each and every one of us. Donald Trump, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Dan Bongino. You can go down the entire list. These are the kulaks. These are the head peasants, right? And they stood in the way. It stood in the breach, protecting us. And now that Tucker is gone, that's that last piece off the chessboard. So now the mainstream is so homogenous and so sanitized that they can look to the alternative. They can look to us. They can look to Glenn Beck. They can look to Alex Jones. Look at Tucker in 2 years if he gets to speak, what he's going to say. And they can say, these are radicals. They can say the three of us are white nationalists. That go figure. They will say that, though. They said it about Larry Elder. They'll say we're all white nationalists. They say we're all racist. We all hate the country, and we're trying to incite bank runs. How much easier now does it get for the normies in the police department, the justice department, the health department, whatever deep state department, to say, well, all the news is saying these people are radical. My bosses are saying they're radical. I guess it is justified to handcuff them and throw them in the back of the van, throw them on the train, take their guns away.
Yep.
That's exactly where we're heading. And it may, I have always like aired in my head, like, Tom, do I sound hyperbolic? No, this isn't hyperbolic. At what point? I don't want to be 80 years old lying in bed wishing that, man, in 2023, I could have really just said no and did something. I don't want to be that person. I really just want to exploit any opportunity at any point to just wake people up and just be like, listen, this isn't good, guys. We are heading to the train cars.
Yeah. Now,
I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to veer off on a side note with some additional information that I didn't give you guys a heads up on, but it's relevant to this. Bo, go ahead and finish your thought, and then I'll get into mine in a minute.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, people need to wake up, but the problem is, people don't even know they're asleep. That is truly the problem. And as I look back, like I'm getting a little older, and I look back at like people who are in their 30s, people who are in their 20s, teenagers, they live in a totally different America. Like they're looking into an America that's totally foreign from the America I was looking into when I was like 15, right? Mm-hmm. The future, for me, the future of America was, we have racial problems and stuff like that, but it was nothing like this. And you had the red, the USSR or whatever, and you might get a nuclear bomb dropped on you. Don't worry, just hide under a desk. But nobody really thought that was going to actually happen, right?
Yeah.
We had superheroes. We had, men, masculinity wasn't toxic. Femininity wasn't masculine. It was just whatever happened for the past 100 years would continue to happen. But if you're 15 years old now and looking forward, man, your best friend, Tommy, may be Michelle in a week. Like there's just, you may not have a dollar. Your dollar may be worthless, right? You may not even be able to get a job at McDonald's because, the McDonald's and the Burger Kings are automated now. So people need to wake up first. They need to realize that they're asleep and then wake up. I don't know if that makes any sense, but most people just don't even realize they're asleep.
It makes sense, but at this point of the game, man, like, we're coming down, and, once again, they can always kick the can down the road, sure, but in general, we're coming down a home stretch to where, like, at this point, most people, they're so conditioned to believe one particular thing, and then on top of that, their own biases to where they wouldn't want to hear anything other than what supports their narrative or what they see at this present moment. And that's usually when they look at that phone. If it's not in that phone in real time, and somebody's tweeting and sharing, and if they got no likes on it, it's probably not real. So I'm not gonna mess with that. Anything that requires critical thinking, more than likely they're gonna stay away from that. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But real quick, what I wanted to share, there's a video clip that somebody shared on the Telegram page, and it has a lot to do with the overarching viewpoint of what we're talking about here. And so everything we talked about today are, little curveball distractions they're throwing our way, trying to keep the narrative in control of everything. But at the end of everything, it's all about what all countries have agreed to work towards and sign up for. So I want to play this little video clip, about 50 seconds. So listen to it, and then we'll share our thoughts on it. And let me go from there. So give me 1 second. Let me grab this because it's quite interesting. Let me share this video real quick. And it's very telling. So check this out. Let me see if I can make it bigger so you guys can see it. Maybe I'm not. So I may not be able to do it the way I wanted to. Anyway, let me see if I can. There we go. I'm going to play it from here.
Is it playing?
Yeah, I can't hear it if it's playing.
Can you hear us, Mike?
I can hear you. I'll
Okay.
repeat it. I'll repeat it if you can't hear it.
No, we can
Yeah, I
hear
can
the
hear it.
clip.
So it looks like they said it's not playing. So forgive me. So anyway, so from that video there, it's 50 seconds long, and it's the director of the Better Than Cash Alliance, and it's ultimately a World Economic Forum UN entity backed by the Bill Gates, Melinda Fund, all the big corporations, and the goal is to execute removing cash by 2030. And so she's saying that every single government on the planet has already signed up for it. And so it's their job to make sure they accomplish that, because it's a part of the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. And so that's kind of where I was heading at, with just highlighting that everything that we're witnessing, experiencing in real time, some form of fashion, it can be equated to these 17 goals. So every area of our lives play into these 17 goals. And this is what they're selling us with on a positive note. But if you take the reverse of all this, it's the part where they're removing freedoms and political structure, that private public partnership stuff. And so the SDG, UN Agenda 2030, is what everything is heading towards. And so literally, if it's 2023, their objective is to be complete by 2030. That means we got 7 years of them trying to do all types of things to confuse us, distract us, while they're step by step, day by day, year by year, working towards their goal of accomplishing those 17 agendas. And so anyway, apologize for not being able to hear it, but sweet and
this
simple.
is exactly why I think this whole Ukraine thing is highly suspect. I will not go so far as saying it's fake, because I would never want to disgrace anybody who's lost their lives. But what I'm saying is that it's highly freaking suspect, because this whole event is giving them so many opportunities to bring in exactly what you were just talking about, all of these 2030 goals. Okay. It's deindustrializing Europe and Germany. It's cutting off the natural gas. It's forcing all of these changes. It's allowing these governments to do these reckless things that are counterintuitive to the benefit of their populace. That is why it seems highly suspect to me, especially when you get Santa Claus Schwab praising the Chinese model. I'm sorry. How the heck can you get the WEF and all of its goons and Henry Kissinger, and Brzezinski would be there if he was still alive? How do you get them all together? Rah, 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 Ukraine. And then literally out to the other side of the mouth of Santa Claus Schwab, praise the Chinese model. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. In my mind, I believe that this is a grand global conspiracy. It's the United States, Russia, and China funneling us all into this international, like, culture war crap and this petty debate and whatever, while they are strip mining every resource, putting in place every contingency and every plan to just completely take control of the world. Because this BRICS thing, like I've brought up before, I am sorry. There is no way on God's green earth that any of these BRICS leaders are going to back their currency by anything other than debt. They're not going to make themselves less powerful. That's stupid. I'm sorry. We don't live in a good, kind world. The world has always been at war. Everybody has always been fighting each other. The BRICS isn't just going to come along and everything's going to be good and fair and free trade. No, this sounds to me like they're setting us up in this fake conflict between the USD and the BRICS because of Ukraine to put us all on. It seems, wait, like you go from COVID to Ukraine, and then all of the pieces fall into place that you would need to have this thing happen. That just seems way too coincidental to me.
Right. And to speaking of it, just off topic, but in reference to what you said earlier, Dre, about nuclear war and having people put their heads under the desk. I remember seeing a lot of those video footage. Fire alarms go off, you put your head under your desk. And I'm thinking, like, that same level of thinking, in a nuclear event, like you put a kid under a desk, like, oh, okay. That equates to the same level of stupidity, I think, now, where you see people putting a mask on their face from a microscopical virus that, if it's something out there for real, like, if you can breathe air, it's in there. And to this day, you still see people at the stop sign with their mask on.
Yep. People at the beach by themselves with a mask on. I'm like, man, people are dumb. Hey, FYI, man, like, people are dumb. A person is smart. A person isn't. I'm never gonna call a person dumb, but people, that group of people, oh man, they can be really dumb. And
I say they're not wise.
Okay. Going back to what we were talking about a little earlier about people being asleep and they need to wake up. They need to figure out somehow that they're asleep. I saw something the other day. I've seen it, I don't know how many times. It's in black and white. It's on YouTube, and it's some old guy who talks like an old white guy in the 40s and 50s. I wish I could do like a imitation of those characters from back in the day. But he was saying back then how this starts with the socialists and Marxists changing the language. First, like that's step one of many. Like, change the definition of words and language. And I just, in my lifetime, I don't know. Yeah, inflation. The definition of inflation, the dictionary definition of inflation hasn't changed. Has changed. Sorry. Now it's the result of inflation instead of actually inflating the monetary system. The result is prices increase. But I think one of the most important definitions that has changed is the definition of America. And that is, we keep calling it, I don't, but a lot of people keep calling it a democracy, especially the left. It's identified as a democracy. Well, we need to all push back on that as hard as we can. This is a constitutional republic. And correct people when they say, this is a democracy and blah, blah, blah. No. This is a constitutional republic that is so vital, so important, because you have at least 2 generations under me who think this is just a democracy. And this is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. And everything that's great about this country is in those 2 words, constitutional republic. I just wanted to put that service announcement out there.
Yeah, here's the thought.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say Sorry. I was just going to say, when they say our democracy, they're literally talking about their democracy. The politicians, the mediaites, their democracy. We're just in the way.
Sure.
Right. And then, of course, as time has gone on, I've heard so much about, how just that little small region known as Washington, D.C., how that in of itself is the actual area that is labeled as, the actual national federal government, because all the rest of the states in themselves are individual republics in of themselves, to where it's never really been fully unified to be even called the United States of America. So, that goes down a rapid with the sovereignty stuff and all that stuff that's has a lot of validity to it. But it's like, okay, you go too far with that, you'll get canceled, or the tax man gonna knock on your door or something like that. So I have to be careful with how far I go down that hole there. But just so much of our history has been altered along the way with the definition and the narrative of things, to where like it's so that diluted now. I wouldn't even really know where to go get the absolute truth from, just because it's been 100+ years of them lying to us. Like, how do we get back to finding some form of truth? That would be the question.
Archive.org. Is it archive.org?
Archive.org, yeah.
And
all my research comes from books written in the 1800s. So
and archive.today.
If you're talking about, I try and read about a period from authors who lived in the period. So if it's the Civil War, there was plenty of books written before the Civil War happened, right? Yeah, plenty of books, and they're available online now for free. So that's one place to start. Like, I'm not listening to somebody who was born in 1980 tell me about what happened in the Civil War. Like, you weren't there. I mean, I got plenty of direct sources, books written in 1857 before the war, 1877 after the war, so the source of information, I think more people need to be really critical of where they're getting their news sources. And one thing I will say, just some advice. If you hear anybody tell you, oh, I read it, so therefore you don't have to. I read it, so you don't have to.
No.
Be very skeptical of that person.
Right. Because there's no telling how much stuff they're going to remove or twist or tweak to their own particular agenda. So,
but this all gets back to the crux of it, like with the Tucker Carlson thing. This is the homogenization of information in the media. If these people, the fact checkers, the mainstream, the New York Times, the paper of record, the gray lady, if these people, these exalted institutions, these exalted information warehouses, okay, have become so homogenized and corrupted, and there's no one on the inside to push back against it, how does a nation deal with that when those same institutions are then saying everything alternative, everything not us is somehow evil or racist or criminal or whatever? Because like you were saying before, Mike, with the ICANN seizing of domains, that's what's coming next. Especially with the bank failures, they're going to start saying, oh, you're talking about the banks, you're inciting a bank run. Bloop, gone, done. It's going to happen. We are homogenizing information. It's wrong information. Then fact checkers are coming out and circling that information and saying, this is some good information, guys. Let's get this in you. It's absolutely insane. We're living in this weird loop of lie. It's like that game Telephone. I tell Andre shoes, and Andre tells Mike socks, and then it goes down the line, and somehow we're talking about Lamborghinis. It's just absolutely nuts. I don't know how we get out of this loop. If I had one wish and I could do anything, I would break the internet. That would be it. No internet, no TV. Let's get back to basics.
Yeah, that'll put everybody at a disadvantage, but in a good way, because you'll be forced to have to go back and actually open up a book for information and actually do some reading and stuff like that. Yeah, but then again, like when it comes to labor in general, like everything is done through the internet. So logistically, everything will come to a halt. So you're gonna have to provide for yourself. So it'd be literally like that'd be some Mad Max type stuff, because everything we do is connected to the internet. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't be mad at that either. I mean, it'll give our future generations a chance at being able to do for themselves rather than have everything done for them, especially heading into a chat GTP future.
Well, I always, 10 years ago or whatnot, I was saying, there's that bell curve, and at the tip of the bell curve, there'll be, like Mr. T said, a lot of pain, where you get whatever is happening to America. Like you're gonna it's gonna be a bloodbath, a lot of lives lost. That's what I was predicting, but I was also predicting that I'd be dead by the time that happened. But this looks like this might happen this summer. I ain't playing no corner no time too. So whatever happens this summer, on the other side of that, I think is when we build this back. And I think when we build it back up, I think we gotta keep the basics. If we can, constitutional republic, women are women, men are men, boys are boys, girls are girls, children are children. Amazing. Like we don't even have children anymore, man. Like that's radical. 4-year-olds talking like they going to court or something. Like so we that innocence is gone, man. Like you're exposed to everything. Now I'm not gonna technology, you can't stop it. I know you can't stop it. So I'm not gonna poo-poo the fact that we got all the information in the world in the palm of my hand, and so does a 7-year-old kid. I don't think we'll ever go back to, no internet. Because I think I don't think that'll happen. It happened temporarily, maybe, but I don't think that horse is left to burn. But there are certain things we've lost as a society. The nuclear family, appreciation for femininity, appreciation for masculinity, sound money, community, right? The appreciation for labor, physical labor, protection, responsibility, these things. On the other side of that bloodbath, I think we got to remember that those things are very important when we start over again.
Like, so we will be considered the elders. Like we will be the wise sages of the rebuilding phase, to where we will be the ones passing down knowledge on how and what life used to be like. Because the library is going to be scrubbed of all types of truth and everything between. And then here's another little comment here. Broadlight Broker said that the internet is our only freedom. And so think about all the information we have been able to gather because we've had access to the internet. You know what I'm saying? So it's that plus and minus, give or take to it. So yeah.
I agree with his comment.
Archive.org, man, I've learned so much that just, it started with Glenn Beck and that what you showed, Black Founding Fathers, man. I was like, where's he getting this information from? Yeah, there you go. Like, where's he getting this information from? And a lot of that, like, he had professors on there, and a lot of, I got their books and in their citations, they were citing books that were written in the 1800s. I was like, well, hey, they're on the internet. And if it wasn't for the internet, I can't go to the Library of Congress and get the original book of, you know what I mean? Get one of these original books. So you're right. The internet is our freedom. Just hope more and more people take advantage of that.
See, I to that comment, to that viewer, the internet is our only freedom. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, though, right? Because like, would we be in this situation if we didn't have the internet at all? Because it seems to be the thing that's enslaving us that we're using to somehow fight back. It seems like you're grabbing a sword that someone's trying to throw at you and pushing it back as your hands are getting cut open. That's how it seems. I think it's like fire. Yeah, that too, like fire. Like you can use it, but you're gonna burn yourself also as it slowly gets bigger, and you try to use it to go against the enemy.
Yeah. I mean, you can exist without the internet. Like, I mean, you got Amish people, they're doing what they've been doing for the past couple of 100 years. I'm assuming they're not using the internet. Like, they don't have no OnlyFans pages filled with Amish women. So,
yes,
you can exist
firsthand.
You can exist without the internet. But life would get a lot harder. And for the old sages of the future, man, I couldn't even tell anybody how to start a fire, man. I'm a city boy from Detroit. If this thing goes down, I'm going to be useless. I'll just be talking. Can't tell you how to do anything. I can tell you how to write a sentence. That's about it. But as far as building houses, shelter, stuff like that, like stuff, think about it, stuff your grandfather would do with no hesitation because his father had to do it. We don't do that no more, man. Like,
go out,
does that.
Milk the cows.
Milk the cows, man. I'll starve, man. Go out there and kill a deer. What?
So I've gone fishing before. So my father taught me how to, catch and gut and cook a fish, but it's been 30 years. So I'm a little rusty, but I remember.
Hey, man, if I'm killing a deer, I hit it with a car, man. It's no way.
I saw someone do that yesterday. Yesterday, there was a dead deer on the side of the road, and I'm driving. There's traffic. This car is parked over by like this little guardrail thing. And I'm the last car in the line of traffic. Light lets up. I pull through, and I'm slowing down. I'm like, what the heck is this guy doing? He pulls out into the road with his little pickup truck, like a Ford Ranger, like small truck. He's throwing this road hit deer into the back of the truck. And I'm like, man, that's a smart guy right there.
Hopefully, was it fresh kill? Was it fresh? And that boy, like, did he see it get hit? Or that boy sitting there for 2 days?
That was my thought. I'm like, man, that's a smart dude, but I hope that thing wasn't laying there all day. It was warm out.
Oh, man. Well, gentlemen, we're past an hour, man. Good discussion, good laughs, and everything in between, man. So I appreciate you guys, man. We got the Broke Capitalist on YouTube as well at brokecapitalist.com and the Coming Conflict over on Rumble. And link information is in the description. Go check those guys out, show them some love. And other than that, gentlemen, as always, it's good. Give me you got a book for us or what? Or are you going to use arch.org as a source?
Why not? Well, I'll say that should just keep that in your browser. There's books. I mean, I can't like the old source I've gotten from there. I think a book was written in 1600s, man. So they got it all there, and they're free because they're in the public domain. So you can even download them yourself. If you're interested in old recipes, man, they got old recipe books there. They got books written by, slaves, books written in the 1800s. It's a wealth of information. and you know there's no political bias there unless it's a literal political book. But I'm gonna go back to, because I think I'm gonna keep slamming this home, man, because so many people younger than me have not realized an America without socialism and socialist policies and Marxism. So Atlas Shrugged, I'm gonna say it again. It'll take you a while to get through it, get it on Audible, but at a minimum, it shows you, it does an A and B test, basically, what a capitalist society looks like, what a socialist society looks like, and you take them to the extremes, and one of them always ends bad. And it's an awesome book. It was voted the #1 book of the 20th century on I don't know how many different lists. And then when America went broke, now you can't even mention the book without being called like a fascist or something. So that should tell you it's worth reading.
All right, Dan. Well, anyway, gentlemen, good stuff, man. Appreciate you guys. I'm sure next week will be a lot more things. From here on out, there's going to be enough things to talk about, and of course, try to spin a little bit, get some laughter out of it. Can't just be all doom and gloom. Got to enjoy life as well. So, but enjoy the rest of your day and weekend, fellow. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys later.